Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Bryan from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
OpenAI got hit through a poison software package, and the company behind critical Ozempic injection components have been offline for weeks after ransomware. And Change Healthcare is now being sued over a breach caused by a single account with no MFA. 3 different industries, same problem. Welcome to Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. I'm Bryan Hornung, joined as always by Randy, Bryan, and Reginald Andre. And guys, this week we're running us into a slightly different order from the last couple of weeks. I'm putting Randy at the back of the show this week. He's going to open up the show with a story on how self-propagating worm, the nerd here in me, slipped into one of the most downloaded JavaScript libraries on the planet, and how OpenAI, of all companies, ended up with 2 compromised employees' devices because the attackers were faster than the rollout. Randy, when it comes to a nerd story, I got to leave it to you. So here we go. Take it away.
Yeah. So this one was brought to my attention because it does involve OpenAI. OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT. I'm sure all of our users have heard of that one. And about a week ago or a few days ago, I don't know the exact time, but I have ChatGPT Atlas running on my MacBook, and all of a sudden I got a pop up that it's a virus and it's been deleted. And basically it went away off my machine. And so I'm like, well, what the heck is going on there? And I start digging around a little bit and I find this story. So let me talk a little bit about what happened. So there's an open source library. Open source library, they're basically little programs that all the big programs use. Kind of think of it as like the plumbing in the walls of almost all modern software. So like you need something that pops up and collects a form. Well, there's like 50 little open source libraries. You can choose from one of those. You can pull it in to your program. So this open source library called TanStack basically got attacked. So the attackers in a campaign called the Mini Shy Hulud. Okay, I won't say that again, and don't let your eyes gloss over on this part. But anyway, the attackers went into this open source library and they basically infected it. So it's like going into the supply store and, putting some bad bricks in there that are then later on at a building supply store that later on are used to build a house with. And the house is basically corrupted, if you will, because the bricks were bad. So they stuck this malicious code into this open source library that goes out to millions of apps around the world. And basically what happened was over at OpenAI, they had 2 developers that were using this particular library. Like I said, it's called TanStack. And so they brought the updated TanStack into their probably Codex, which is their programming tool at OpenAI. They brought this infected stack into their stack, and then it deployed malware, and then it went in, and OpenAI has all this software for Macs, right? And it went into there, and it basically made them all bad, if you will. And so now every single Mac OS user that uses any OpenAI apps, like me, I was using Atlas. It got marked as a virus. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Why did that happen? Well, that's happening to everybody. It's happening to millions of users. So if you're using the ChatGPT desktop, boom, it's gone. It's been deleted off your machine by Mac, unless you have something turned off. Use the Codex, which is their programming tool. Boom, it's gone. Codex CLI, boom, it's gone. Atlas, which was their browser with ChatGPT built in. It could like go to websites on its own and click around and ask questions. Boom, it's gone. So ChatGPT caught it. They caught it within a few hours. They were able to shut it down. They brought in an outside firm. They got it all fixed and got it all pretty. They said all those apps are now a virus. You must delete them. And then you can go in and you can basically download the new ones. And here's kind of why it matters, y'all. And thanks for sticking with me for this to this point. But why it matters is attackers are now going after the building blocks of like all software in the whole wide world. And one poisoned building block can then get spread to literally millions of software programs within hours. We know that OpenAI was already thinking about this and starting to address this, but this is something, I mentioned it either last week or the week before. We talked a lot about vibe coding. And vibe coding is basically when somebody that's not a programmer sits down with Codex or Claude Code and starts writing code. If you're vibe coding, this is another one of the dangers you can run into, because now by default, your Claude Code is not going to say, oh, let's do something to get secure with this particular library. You know, what you ought to be doing when you bring in those libraries is have Claude Code or Codex or whatever needs to be checking it for updates, needs to be looking for something malicious. What I would suggest is you basically fork over your own version. So you got your own version over here. When they roll out an update, you can have Claude Code go look at the update, make sure it's not malicious, fold it into yours if it's not. That way there's like a level of separation between you and that. But going forward, y'all, this is going to be a big deal. I said it back like 3 years ago when you had the bad guys got into a developer's computer, probably while he was on a smoke break I can't remember. It was one of the RMM tools. Downloaded a backdoor. It went into all the government facilities. It went into Microsoft because of that. Change in your code has to be reviewed, and it needs to be reviewed before any of it goes live. And now with AI, you really don't have an excuse, because it can just be a thing it does that takes like 30 seconds or a minute. But code review is more important now than it ever was, times like 10, because of what's going on with this thing over the last few weeks with these open source libraries. Would love to hear y'all's thoughts on this as well.
Hey, Brian, quick question.
Welcome back. So. Go ahead, Andre.
Quick question, Brian. So, excuse me, Randy. Was it the Mac that came up on the screen, like their internal antivirus, or was it your third party that caught it?
It was on mine. It was my Mac. The Mac has built in like trusted, untrusted. I don't know how high tech it is, but it's there, and I'm not going to turn it off. My software works with it, and it just popped up and said, "Boom! This is a virus. We've already deleted it." So
okay. No, that's great. That's great that at least a built-in one, because as we know, a lot of times people think that Macs are not susceptible to these type of things, but that's great that they saw it.
Well, they are big time susceptible to these kind of things. I like to say when you use a Mac, it's like being behind a tiny wall in a war. You know, no one thinks to shoot all their guns and all their weapons over at the tiny wall. And because Macs are such a small part of the overall programming in the world, I mean, they're less than 10%, probably 6%, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact number, little higher in the US, but still they're a tiny percentage. That is not a form of security. Obscurity is not security. It's not the same thing. But yeah, the built-in did catch it, which is great. And I'm glad that it did.
So what could a normal user who maybe their company had approved this application, they went through everything, they said, okay, we're going to use this, this is your do's and don'ts, but they downloaded it from the appropriate site, they trusted OpenAI and all of this. So what could have a regular user or IT person miss or done better?
Yeah. Well, so one thing is, don't turn off any of the built-in security, okay? And if you download an app, because there's decent built-in security on most computers, but especially on a Mac, not on most, but on a Mac, there's decent built-in security. Don't mess with that. And if something asks you, like if you download a program and it says, hey, turn off, basically it has a frozen operating system, if you will. And it says, oh, I need you to turn that off and go into like single user mode and hit F1 and turn on the machine in a weird way and then disable it. Just say no. Don't use apps that have that. That's what I would say first. And then second off, if you're doing that, then in this particular case, the file is gone and you didn't have a choice. And now, like for me, I've got a question mark down on my dock. And if I hover over it, it says ChatGPT Atlas. If I click on it, it's gone. It's no longer there. You'll just have to go re-download from their website. Go re-download. And what they went through and they basically expired all of their certificates. They rotated all their APIs, all their codes, all their keys. Like they've done the due diligence, if you will. And so now you can go and download the fresh app and then get back to work. And I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
No. Yeah, it answered.
Okay.
Pretty much they did everything right. So thankfully in this case, the vendor and manufacturer, they went in and did their updates and everybody talked to each other and everything is working now, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would think that the control that they're rolling out is, like I mentioned in my segment when I was talking, was building a layer of separation between the Git, which is where the code is, the library or whatever. Usually they're in GitHub or something similar, but building in a level of separation between that and your production. And that's probably what their security controls are doing. Maybe they build their own, and then the AI rolls in the changes after it's examined that they're not malicious. I'm not sure. Or you build your own and just use them from there going forward. That's what I've been trying to do. We'll see about that. But yeah, so that's probably what they're rolling out now. I don't know exactly how, but they did catch it pretty quick. So they probably have some decent security. I would think they would have world-class security, because they're top of the game of a new and upcoming technology that they don't want those secrets. They better not want those secrets getting leaked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was just going to kind of highlight that out of your article of one thing that you guys haven't touched on yet is other companies don't do cybersecurity like this company, right? And this company still got popped, right?
Yeah.
TanStack, their postmortem says that 7 maintainers sharing credentials created multiple attack vectors. That sounds like a small open source project problem, but how many companies out there, guys, have we come across with that have employees, even IT admins? When we do a lot of CMMC related assessment work, we're finding these IT departments, they have teams of 3 or 4 people who share admin credentials or admin passwords across the board. Same router, same M365 tenant, they're using the same global admin, or they all have global admin on their own daily driver accounts. Either one is, you're setting yourself up to become a victim, just like OpenAI did, right? And as you rightfully pointed out, this company probably has world-class cybersecurity, so it didn't get too far. So my bigger concern here is the companies that don't do it, like OpenAI, right? How bad is it? How quickly can they move through it, right? How big will that blast radius be when it goes off, right?
Yep.
Any final thoughts there, guys?
Well, just that's something we've been saying on this show. I pretty much from day one. It's not a matter of if you're going to have a blast. It's you get attacked, which creates a blast, not in a fun way, but it's a matter. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then when it happens, what are you going to have in place that will limit the blast radius? These little things ought to be a few hours and not a few months or a few weeks or whatever. You can't prevent everything, but you ought to be doing due diligence to have some good multiple layers in place. I like to say if the bad guys get in, I want them to feel like they're running in chest high mud. They can't just get into one place and all of a sudden they have the keys to the kingdom. That's back in the day. We used to look at it like a castle with a moat, but once they were in, they could do whatever they want. You can't look at it like that anymore. It's got to be more like an onion with layers. They may get into one of those layers, but every layer ought to be slowing them down.
Yeah, this was actually, in a sense, although it was bad PR in the sense of what happened, but it was good PR in the sense that they showed that they were on top of things. Like, we're not talking about this 2 months later to find out that they were stealing all your data, the last 20 things you've been inputting every day and things like that.
That's a great point. I think at one point we went through a phase in our show where we talked about remove the shame of reporting your attack. And, maybe these guys kind of handled it in such a way that it does kind of remove the shame. Stuff happens.
Possibly.
But then they limited the blast radius and it didn't bring down the whole thing. But you got to think those two developers still had access to a lot. You need to limit your developers to just what they're working on. But even in that case, it could be a lot that they're working on. So.
All right, cool. So Randy just walked us through what it's like to have trust placed in the software supply chain, as we're seeing businesses do with these AI tools every single day. And this is what happens when one of those weak links break. And this won't be the first time or last time, and it won't be the biggest story by far that we see one of these AI tools causing havoc in a business. So my story takes us to that exact same question, but it moves us from the code or the code of OpenAI to the physical world, from keys to your cloud to the rubber stopper on the syringe that delivers your flu shot. And that's what we're going to talk about today, guys. I want to introduce you to this company called West Pharmaceutical Services. They're headquartered right down the road from me in Exton, Pennsylvania, beautiful Exton, Pennsylvania. They were founded in 1923, gentlemen. Over 10,800 employees, 50 global sites, $3 billion in revenue last year. Sounds like they should have a pretty decent cybersecurity budget, wouldn't you think? And also listed in the S&P 500. And I bet money that 90% of the business owners listening to this show right now have never heard this company before. But here's what West Pharmaceutical actually does, guys. They make those little rubber stoppers, the vial seals, and the syringe plungers, and auto injector components for roughly 43 billion injectable drug deliveries every single year. So if you've ever gotten a flu shot, there's a very good chance that a West component was inside that vial. If you've ever taken an insulin pen, a West part was probably in that. If you know someone who's on Ozempic or Wegovy, West is almost certainly inside that package. They are one of these companies, the silent backbone of the global injectable drug supply industry. And on May 4th, 2026, West detected an intrusion on its global network. They activated incident response, and they did something most companies talk about doing, but very few actually have the guts to pull the trigger on. They took their systems offline globally, worldwide. By May 7th, they had determined that the attack was material under SEC rules. And on May 12th, they filed that famous 8K with SEC confirming that attackers have both stolen data and deployed file encrypting ransomware across their network. They engaged the big guys, Palo Alto, Unit 42. They notified law enforcement. And as of May 13th, manufacturing, shipping, and receiving have only restarted at some sites. 2 weeks in, guys, some sites. So here's what I want every business owner listening to pay attention to, guys, because West doesn't sell to consumers, right? West sells to pharma giants. Their customers are Pfizer, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk. So if West factories are slowed down, the downstream effect is drug shortages, missed shipments, and contract penalties, and ultimately patients who don't get their medications on time or got to pay more for it. We know how this game's played out a million times, right? Henry Schein attack in 2023 cost an estimated $400 million in lost sales, right? Pharma manufacturing ransomware events historically run $50 to $200 million in direct costs before insurance even gets involved. So I want to wrap up here, guys, and I want everyone to sit with this number, 8 days, right? That's how long it took West to go from initial intrusion on May 4th to filing an 8K with the SEC on May 12th. New SEC cyber disclosure rules give public companies 4 business days to disclose a material breach. West used that time they had to investigate, scope, and engage Unit 42, and they still filed inside that window. That is the new normal. So speed, man, and you got to engage. I'm sure they paid a pretty penny to Unit 42 to get in there and help figure out what was going on so they could meet that deadline. So here we go, guys. Supply chain, third party. We've been talking about it for feels like forever now, but it feels like we can't get away from it. Every single week on this show, one of us is bringing these supply chain issues that are caused by ransomware groups and cyber criminal groups.
Yeah. If it's not something with AI related with cybersecurity, it's a supply chain. Definitely.
The story is really not about West at this point, right? It's about us. It's about business owners. It's about consumers, right? God, I feel like so many people are on these Wegovy and Ozempic drugs. I mean, what would happen if they can't get it? I mean, I don't even know. Like, that's a question for Randy, right? But there's clearly things that even companies like this are not doing based on this story, right? You got to run to the outside world, get help from a major cybersecurity company to help you figure out what was going on before you can even file with the SEC, right? It almost feels like, guys, like they called them and they came in and they were like, yo, you need to file this. This is material. It's almost like they had no clue what was happening until the hackers revealed themselves. And we talked about this last week, I talked about this. I talked about this with one of our customers earlier in the week, last week, when we were looking at their company and we were looking across their industry and we're like, look, this company is just like you in the same industry, almost the same size. And these attackers were in their network for 83 days before anyone even knew about it, right? Similar size company. So like, you got to look at this massive company here, right? And they really didn't have the telemetry, the knowledge, and know-how to know that somebody was in their system. And look, no, this is not an easy task for a company this big and this global. I mean, that is tough to know when somebody's in that big of a network. Yeah,
because they confirm both encryption and data theft. And now when you're thinking about the recovery, because we hear it all the time from prospects where they say, you know what, if I get hacked, I'll just buy new computers and call it a day. But, there's a lot of other things. You got to make sure that, are the systems clean? The production data that you're either getting back from your backups, or if you did pay the ransom or whatever the case is it trustworthy? Was anything altered? So, and this is going to, like you said, a company this big, it's going to take a long, long time. In other words, you just can't turn back a flip of the switch.
Yep. But, this goes back to that third-party conversation, right? Every company, as Randy talked about, layers, right? This is another layer that we are not focusing enough time, energy, or importance on. And that is your third-party risk. Just because you pay somebody, just because you write them a check, doesn't absolve you of the risk that it has to your business if that service can no longer provide its services or products to you. In this case, a product. If it can't provide those plungers, what do these drug companies do, right? We've seen this play out in service sector. If your payroll company gets hacked and they're down for months and months and you can't pay your people, what are you going to do? What's your backup plan? It's not, in a lot of cases, it's not the end of the world. But if you don't think about it ahead of time and you don't put a plan in place to have a backup system, a resilient system, you're going to find yourself standing around one day going, oh, that company got hacked and now it's impacting our business. We can't do business because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Randy, you're muted. Randy, you're muted.
Wow. So I can't find anything about the bad guys here, and often the silence means a ransom was paid. I'm looking at their language, the SEC language. We have taken steps intended to mitigate the risk of dissemination of the exfiltrated data.
Mm-hmm.
Did they just pay the ransom?
I mean, that is, in my opinion, that is language congruent with language that we see all the time now when these companies pay the ransom.
That's what it
At this size,
like.
you have to, man. To get back operational.
Guys, remember last week we talked about what was that school breach that we just had?
Yeah, Canvas. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys came out like, I don't remember how they said it, but it didn't sound like it was a bad thing that they paid the ransom. It sounded like,
right.
We negotiated this and we're moving on. Hey, everybody.
Right.
That's how I read it.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let me slip down here. Andre, you're up, buddy. You ready, sir?
I'm up. Yeah. If
Cool.
You guys remember, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, I'll never forget this one. But, I think your story kind of closes the loop on this whole kind of conversation that Randy and I started. This is the tail end of it, right? And and I don't think this is going to end for years for this company, right? But the legal and financial bills are adding up for Change Healthcare and United Healthcare, who got hacked 2 years ago. So, Andre, take it away.
All right. So what we have is Change Healthcare, which is owned by United Health Group. And many people never heard of Change Healthcare before this happened a couple of years ago. And they basically processed medical claims, prescriptions, payments, and insurance transactions for doctors' offices, providers, insurers. So they are like a big, I think someone used the word plumbing, right? So they're the big financial plumbing and kind of like the software that a lot of these medical places would use. So we have a company called Avesis, which is a vision, dental, and hearing benefits management company. And they were part of this breach with Change Healthcare. So now their insurance company, Avesis Insurance Company, which is called Allied World Insurance, they've paid out more than $1 million in damages related to the disruption caused by the Change Healthcare ransomware attack. And now what we see is that the insurance company paid their client, and now the insurance company is now going back to the person that caused it, in this case, Change Healthcare, and now trying to claw back that money, saying, hey, you owe us because we paid our customers' losses, and we want reimbursement because we believe that you caused the damage. So it's very similar in the car insurance world where, an accident happens and it's someone else's fault, your insurance will go ahead and dish things out, but now they're going to go back. Now, what this lawsuit, like you said, Brian, this is going to continue for a long time because according to the article, there are approximately 120 other related cases. And let's just say each one is an average of $1 million. That's $120 million that this is now, if you just did the quick math. So, but all of these lawsuits, they're revolving around the same central theme. Was it gross negligent? And in this case, we had MFA missing, and we had, I believe it was a weak password and MFA that was missing, and this is why they got hacked. And this is going to be kind of the angle that they're saying is this could have been preventable. So I believe 2024 is this was when it happened, right? Or late, early, something like that.
Yeah.
So and this is one of 120. So this is very, very interesting. This is probably going to be over. And I mean, we remember the doctor stories, right? Small doctor's offices, they couldn't do payroll because they couldn't bill the health insurance companies and go through all of that. Yep. So here we are.
Yep. And here's what I want to kind of point out. And maybe a lot of business owners already know this, but I'm going to kind of state the obvious that I think most business owners honestly think cyber insurance works like car insurance, right? File a claim, get a check, and a story. And
right.
we are learning that's not what's happening here, right? Allied World paid Avisis their $1 million, and the story doesn't end. Allied World turns around and sues Change Healthcare to get that $1 million back, right? Because Allied World couldn't perform their services. Why? Because Change Healthcare had a cyber attack, not because Allied did anything wrong, right? So this other company, Avisis, who they have a contract with Allied World, they sued Allied World because they didn't get what they were promised. Why? Because Change Healthcare got attacked, right? So we have this now monkey humping a football situation in the business world here in America because we absolutely refuse to do the right thing around cybersecurity. So now we got just companies suing each other left and right because contracts did, and this is the freaking mess. It's almost like, guys, we're almost in we're close to, if not there already, with a spiral of death. Now you got the top companies in the world literally just suing the shit out of each other over cyber attacks.
Yep.
That is the world we live in now.
So, Andre, how long do you think till we get to the end of this Change Healthcare debacle? Because we're now 2 years into it, and it's going strong.
Well, I wonder if this be like if they do because that's the thing. Even though United Healthcare,
guys, because that's what they do. They turn around and go, "Oh, we're going after them now." Like, and in a way, car insurance does work like that, right? If you hit somebody, right, or you hit multiple, if you hit somebody and they hit somebody and they hit somebody, you're at fault for like all three accidents, right? And now you're paying for so like it's kind of the same thing. Like if your cyber attack, if your accident blows up so big, blast radius, we talk about it all the time on this show, that it starts to impact companies you don't even do business with, 3 companies away from you, but they're part of that supply chain. It's fair game. And business owners need to realize that. Somebody you've never met before, your company's doing business with somebody, but they're doing business with somebody else and they get impacted. Now they're coming after you. And you don't think that can happen? It absolutely can happen.
So I have an answer for you, Randy.
Okay.
So United Health Group, with all of their companies and different departments that they have, they do about $400 billion per year, roughly 20 to 25 billion in net income per year. So that's about 1.6 billion, 1 billion per day is their daily revenue. So how long is it going to go for? Until the money dries up.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
So I just threw it in the comments. So you'll see it if you're watching us live, but business owners should be asking these questions, right? Go ask your broker, or ask yourself this, right? If a critical vendor of mine goes dark for 14 days, am I covered for the cost of running manually, retaining alternate vendors, and overtime? Right? So the coverage is actually called contingent business interruption. And it needs to be part of your policy, or you need to make sure you have enough coverage on that particular section, because look, they slice and dice these limits all over the place for things like this, right? Meaning we'll cover you for your business, and that's what they get you to kind of focus on. What does your business do? What's your revenue level? What's your opportunity cost if you can't run, right? Well, what's the guy over there? What's their loss if you can't run? And what about his suppliers and vendors? Is there any risk there? If you guys don't understand this stuff when you write big contracts to partners and vendors, right? Hey, I'm outsourcing part of my business to you. Are you going to outsource part of that to anyone, or are you going to do it all in-house? You might want to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of quality issues, right? But because that company now is signing a contract saying, we expect so much business from the company in the middle, the company you're paying. And if that doesn't come through because now your money's dried up because you're dealing with a ransomware attack, that third company might go, I was expecting this money. Now I'm not getting it. I'm going to go after my customer. And then his insurance agents are going to look around going, who can we go after to make up for this? Because that's what insurance lawyers do.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Any last thoughts? None?
Mm-mm.
All right.
I have one.
Oh boy. Almost ran out of time. Got it in there. Right.
No, just about responsibility. Don't just throw responsibility to the next guy. Kind of what you're just saying about signing the contracts. But it's just,
I see it in business. That's why I say, because I see it all the time. People write checks and think that absolves them of almost everything. And we're learning it doesn't.
Right.
We see the mistake being made over and over because we keep seeing this same story just change the name of the business and change the industry.
Yeah, because at some point, even though United Healthcare makes that type of money, but their insurance policy can probably go only so long, and then it's negotiations, and they're going to try to drag it out, and then it's going to be wait in line, buddy, and unless you have that much time in your hands. Definitely the client itself.
Dude, we have to understand as Americans that we pay for all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These lawyers don't work for free. There isn't some pool of lawyers who just work for corporations for absolutely nothing to figure all this shit out. It's why our system and our insurance and everything costs as much as it does, because we have to pay all these lawyers to do all this dumb shit because we don't do stuff right up front.
Right.
And I'll apply that to more than just cybersecurity. But at the end of the day, it's the same problem. Now, I don't know if it's a big game because people need to make money, or we just are that stupid that we just refuse to do the right thing and can't see it's a lot cheaper to do it this way than to do it the way we've been doing it for the last 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the world we live in, and people don't understand it. Your health insurance premiums are going to go up because there's lawyers battling this shit out in courtrooms every single day between companies that can't get their cybersecurity right. If you don't think your Ozempic and your Wegovy is going to cost more, how do you think West Healthcare is going to pay for this?
Right.
Your shot is going to cost more because they're going to charge more for the plunger. Eventually, right? The way this plays out, they'll go get a loan to cover whatever's under contract now to cover the difference. But then in the future, maybe a year, whenever the current buying contract runs out for them and they have to start buying more resources to make those plungers, then your price is going to go up.
Yep.
That's how it works out. So it takes a while for this to kind of flow through and trickle through the system, right? And I see prices going up on everything everywhere. So we don't need this. And I've always said, go back to the show 4 or 5 years ago. I've always said cyber crime, if we don't get this right, will be something that adds to inflation. Well, here you go. Not ransomware payments, all the BS that comes around it.
Yep.
All right, guys. Randy, you open up the show with a worm that slid into 42 software packages in 6 minutes and ended up on 2 laptops at one of the most security conscious companies in the world. And I talked about a Pennsylvania manufacturer most people never heard of, but rubber stoppers are probably in every Ozempic injection and every flu shot in the United States, taken offline globally by ransomware for 2 weeks and counting. And Andre, you just close this out with an insurance company suing Change Healthcare 2 years after a breach. Millions of dollars in losses for this company at a regional dental insurer in Arizona, and they want their money back. The common thread in all these stories is this: trust placed into third parties now is the single biggest risk in cybersecurity, and it is still being treated by most companies as somebody else's problem to manage. Your developers trust in things like NPM, your patients trust in things like the pharma supply chain, your customers trust in things like insurance clearinghouses. All this stuff needs to work. And it's when it's disrupted by cyber criminals, that's when you see these lawsuits flying back and forth. All these trust relationships are in a place where a breach from somebody you barely know becomes a business-ending event that impacts your life personally. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand. We have to own this as people, as business owners, right? The TanStack worm did not choose OpenAI. It chose whichever developer clicked install first, right? The West attackers did not choose Pfizer. They chose the company that made Pfizer's rubber stoppers because they could get in, because they didn't make it, as Randy said, they didn't make it thick and hard to get through. The Change Healthcare's attackers did not choose a Visas. They chose an account with no multi-factor authentication on it. And the damage flowed downstream from there, right? If you don't know on a single page who your critical vendors are, what your critical vendors are, what data they hold for you, and what happens to your business if any of them goes offline for 14 days, you do not have a good enough security strategy in 2026. You have a hope, you have a prayer, and hope is not a strategy. The companies that survive the next big breach and survive AI are the ones that did the unsexy work of mapping their dependencies, renegotiating their contracts, and running tabletop exercises before any actual event occurs in their business. That's the show. Thanks to Randy and Andre for bringing it today. As always, appreciate it. And if any story, folks, made you think about anything, your business, a vendor relationship, a contract clause that you might have, an MFA gap in your own organization, right? Make sure you examine this stuff. That's the whole point. You can check us out at securitysquawk.com for more information, more resources. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so. Hit that subscribe button right now, wherever you're listening. And if you've got a minute or two, please leave us a review on any podcasting platform that you may be listening to us from. Hey, you post them, we read all these comments. If you do them live while we're on the live stream, we'll put them up on the screen if it's a good and it adds to the show. We appreciate the support. That's why what we do, we don't bring vendors and we don't bring annoying ads on this show as a result of your support. And you can always support us however you want over at buymeacoffee.com/securitysquawk. Links are in the description. See everyone next week. Stay safe, stay secure. For Randy, Andre, and Bryan, We'll see you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.